Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, and UK Astrologer. Hello, how are you? Now this week I thought I'd talk about the chart of Kamala Harris. Now obviously she's in the news at the moment because she's going to be running for the presidency in America, and she's taken over from Joe Biden. And I'm going to talk a little bit about her natal chart, and then I'm going to go on to, which I thought was quite interesting, the date for the election that will be coming up this year. So let's just kick off with her chart. So luckily, we have an exact date and birth time. She's born on the 20th of October 1964 at 9:28 p.m. in Oakland, California. I'm using equal house, as I always do, and her ascendant is Gemini, 24 degrees Gemini, 25 minutes 21 seconds. And what I thought was very interesting, her north node is right slap bang onto her ascendant of 25 degrees 46 minutes. So it's just a couple of minutes. So 25 minutes to 47 minutes is more than a couple of minutes. It's 20 minutes into her first house. Astro.com, when you look at the chart, they will have rounded the north node. No, I haven't rounded up yet. It's 25. So it's 24 for the ascendant, 25 for the north node. So it's less than a minute apart. So right, a degree apart. But anyway, the north node is on the ascendant. So north node is where we have to go this lifetime. South node is where we don't want to be. Inside of Gemini, communicator, chatty, let's get out there and communicate. And first house is the self and how we display ourselves to others. Now, apart from a north node, she only has the Gemini ascendant, and as far as I can make out, she seems to be a good communicator, so I don't think that's an issue. She's a sun sign Libra. Now, we've had a few politicians in the UK that have been Libras. Unfortunately, we had Margaret Thatcher, who was sort of all right for a small amount of time, and then it went to her head. And I think it was something to do with the fact that she had some sort of Scorpio. She either had a Scorpio ascendant or moon in Scorpio or something. But anyway, it all went to her head and it all ended disastrously and bleh. Anyway, and Kamala has the sun in the 5th house, and the sun is happy in the 5th house. She has moon in Aries in the 11th, and the 11th is friendships and groups and other people and communicating to more than one person, because like communicating to the person would be the ascendant, the first house, whatever, but to groups of people would be the 11th, to communicating with your partner would be the 7th, communicating with your children would be your 5th, communicating with your siblings would be your 3rd, communicating possibly with your parents might be your 4th or your 10th. I think it's about right, because the 2nd house doesn't represent people, no, neither does the 6th or the 8th, or the 12th for that matter. And I think the only downside's the wrong word, but the only thing that is a little bit different is that she has her Mercury 1 degree 27 minutes into the sign of Scorpio. Now, I gave birth to somebody who's a sun sign Libra and has their Mercury in Scorpio, and it really upsets my Leo ascendant sometimes, because they have a tendency to say things like, "Ooh, ow, that hurts." But I expect in the work that she's done, because she's legally trained, it's necessary to have that delivery that is to the point rather than fluffy. A fluffy form of communication is definitely Gemini, which is her ascendant. And in her 5th house, she has the Sun, Mercury and Neptune. She hasn't had children, doesn't matter, she hasn't had any kids. She has adopted her husband's children, and I checked his chart. He is a Libra, and just need to point out that he actually is Jewish, so comments that were made the other day about her being anti-Semitic is like, hello, she's married to somebody who's Jewish, so that's just wrong. Outer planet wise, because she's born in 1964, so she has the Pluto-Uranus conjunction in the third, along with Venus, so that's the house of communication. So one would expect somebody with that combo would be more likely to appeal to the generation that she was born into. So the 60s generation, I would have thought, would her method of communicating to them, because she's got two outer planets that are generational, Uranus and Pluto conjunct. It's happened. I wasn't born under it because I was born in 1960. And Venus there in the third house and in Virgo as well. So there'll be some sort of precision in her communication abilities. And then we've got Mars in Leo in the second house. So that's to do with money. I believe now that she's married to this chap, if she wasn't already. I think in the jobs that she's had, they're reasonably well paid. So I'm sure they're not short of a bob or two as it goes. Now her MC's in her ninth, and it's in the sign of Pisces. I haven't got today's transits on there, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So she's got her MC 2 degrees, is that right? MC is 2 degrees Pisces, 24 minutes. And Saturn is conjuncted but out of sign, and Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius, but in the ninth house as well, and her Chiron is located there too. So this is long distance travel, further education, philosophy, whatever. She has been to university, she has studied, she has done the whole studying degree thing, so she's well educated. And the MC being in her ninth, so she's expected in her dealings with the public, because the MC is how the public sees you work-wise, because hers is in the ninth in equal house. She's expected to be communicating to people in all cultures and countries. The moon, as I mentioned, is in Aries in the 11th, and she was born just on the full moon, because the sun is 27 degrees and the moon is 27 degrees, so that's pretty much a full moon. Donald Trump is sun Gemini, moon Sagi, and Biden is sun Scorpio, moon Taurus, but I think his moon's only 1 degree, so it wasn't quite a full moon when he was born. And lastly, she's got Jupiter retrograde in the 11th, and it's in the sign of Taurus, and it's 24 degrees, and Jupiter's luck, and we've got it retrograde. So her Jupiter and her Saturn are retrograde. Those are the only retrograde planets in her chart, lucky sausage. But Jupiter's how we get lucky, how we have to make. So I wouldn't say that she's especially lucky. I think she's had to, from what I can tell and what I've read, she's had to work hard to get to the place that she's in. She's not like she's been sitting about twiddling her thumbs, and her Saturn is retrograde as well. Now, if you've got those two planets retrograde, when you have your Jupiter return and you have your Saturn return, it's going to be a bit harsh if your Saturn, when it returns, is retrograding again, because you might have to repeat something that you're responsible for. With Jupiter, you might have to learn something again. Now, I have already checked. She moved to Quebec when she was 12, and Jupiter takes 12 years to go all the way around the zodiac, and I think I've got the chart for it. So I don't know what month it was she went. I just used the 1st of July. I mean, the chart in the show notes, and I've used the year 1976 when her mother, I believe it was. Oh, her parents got divorced when she was 7. That's right. And when she was 12, Mummy moved to Quebec, because I think she'd been, she's a scientist, and she'd been offered a job, and it was well paid, and it would be a good thing to do. So Mummy went there, and the kiddies went as well. And I believe Kamala has a sister, but I'm not doing the whole family. And Jupiter's returned, but when it returned, it didn't retrograde, so that would have been inverted commas, good move. And in July, Mars is returning. But honestly, I've got no idea what month it would. I would have thought if it's a job that's if it's in a teaching role in the UK, the teaching year starts in September. I don't know when the uni year starts, October, but I can't remember if it was a teaching position she had or a scientific one. Whatever. I've done the year to see what the outer planets are doing. And Uranus that year and that month is retrograding in Scorpio. Neptune's retrograding in Sagi. Saturn isn't retrograding, Pluto isn't retrograding at that particular point in time. But I just wanted to point out that when she moved, it was quite nice to see that Jupiter had returned, and that matched quite nicely with moving house, relocating, because Jupiter is all about long distance travel, further education, going to other countries. So that was rather cute. Now, chart shape wise, she's got a bit of a, it's not a splash, because splash is everything dotted all the way round the circle, and she doesn't have anything in the 6th, 7th or 8th houses, or the 9th, or the 12th, or the 4th. So we can't say it's a splash, so it's possibly a splay. Actually, I could make an argument for a seesaw, come to think of it. Let me just take the North Node out of it. I think we've got a seesaw there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planets against 3. Seesaw it is. So it's heavily weighted to below the horizon. So that's all about the self, and then 3 planets above the horizon, which is Saturn, planet of responsibility, Moon, how we feel, and Jupiter, the lucky one, and those 2 of those are retrograde. So it could be that people will only pick out the things that she has done wrong rather than things that she's doing right. I know certain people out there are doing that, but that's rather on the cruel side. So that's chart shape, okay? Now, if you've got a Gemini ascendant, the ruling planet to that is Mercury, and her Mercury is located in the 5th. Ruling planet is in the 5th. So that's about creativity, romance, etc. One would expect her to be romantic. I did read the story about how she met her husband, and I think he wrote her a very long text after they'd met, and they got quite well, and it was, I can't remember if it was a text or an email they wrote her, but he sort of told her all about himself, that he was what position it was, what he did, what he thought about her, and it was quite a long thing. And I think he ended it by saying, oh yeah, so they met on a blind date, and Emhoff, that's the husband, his actual name's Doug. Anyway, Doug said it was love at first sight. And I'm just going to find where I'd read about the thing that he wrote her. Hold on. Here we go. So they had their first date. He said, I didn't want it to end. So this is an interview. And so the next morning I pulled the move of emailing her with my availabilities for the next 4 months, including long weekends, he said. And I said something like, I'm too old to hide the ball. You're great. I want to see if we can make this work. Here's when I'm available. And I guess it worked. So that's some of the blurb about how they first met, and I think they got married in 2014. And I have their charts. I have the date and how did that affect Kamala. Now, the reason I'm talking about relationships is they're very important for Libras. Both of them are Libra. I'm not going to share his chart. You can Google it and work it out for yourself. And the date they got married was the 22nd of August 2014. The moon was in Cancer, just transiting through her first house because her ascendant's only 24 degrees Gemini. The sun was in Leo, and Venus was in Leo, and Jupiter was in Leo, and she's got Mars in Leo in the second. Mercury was in Virgo, so that's conjuncting her Uranus, Pluto and Venus. In her 5th house, creativity, romance, Saturn and Mars are conjuncting her Neptune, and Neptune's conjuncting her MC, ish, I think. So the MC, Neptune retrograding 8 degrees or 6 degrees, and her MC is 2 degrees, so that's conjuncting. It's probably not far away from her Saturn either. So we've got transiting Saturn conjunct Neptune, transiting Neptune conjuncting Saturn, and because it's retrograding, it get even further backwards. And then Uranus is in the sign of Aries, and she has Moon in Aries. I'm sure when I did his chart, he's a Libra. I can't remember his Moon sign. 1 minute. Oh yes, he's got Moon in Capricorn, so emotionally quite robust. She's got Moon in Aries, so they've both got cardinal moons. He's got Mercury conjunct the Sun in Libra. Their outer planets are near enough the same, so they're born in the same year. He's born in 64. Don't know the time of day, we only got the location, which is Brooklyn, which is in New York. I've got that as Kings County, wherever that is, but yeah, New York. Brooklyn is a part of New York, I'm sure that's right. So, now, what I want to talk about now, so I've done her chart, is something that I found out that was quite interesting when I was researching this episode for you today. And I was looking at 3 elections. So I'm looking at 2016, 2020, and 2024. So in the US, they have their elections every 4 years, and they are set to always be the first Tuesday of November, but not if the first Tuesday happens on the first day of the month. So whatever the first Monday of the month is, then the election is set for the Tuesday. So I was looking at it, so why is it on the 5th 1 year and the 8th another year and the 7th another year and the 3rd another year? Well, why the hell's that? What's that all about? And apparently, according to Britannica.com, one of those sort of, wasn't Google, it said in there that originally in the US, more people farmed, so that's the majority of, when they were setting up when elections were going to happen, but quite a lot of people were farmers, and so therefore they couldn't have the election on a Monday because people would have to travel to the voting booths to cast their votes. They couldn't do it on Wednesday. There was some reason why Wednesday couldn't happen. I think that was when they went to market or something, and then Thursdays and Fridays were out, so that's why it ended up being the first Tuesday of the month, or near to the beginning of the month. So if you're wondering, because I think in the UK ours is always on a Thursday, but in the US it's always on a Tuesday, and it's always in November. That hasn't changed, and it's every 4 years. And it really annoys me in the UK when David Cameron came into power, he just suddenly slipped in this new regulation that when you get elected, your party gets elected. Oh, by the way, you can run for 5 years, not 4. So we have this insufferable thing now that if you've got some people in that you don't like, you've got to put up with the whole 4 years. Not 4 years, you've got to put up with 5 years. At least in the US, you haven't changed anything. So you only have to put up with somebody for 4 years. Mind you, having Boris Johnson can manage 5 minutes of him. Anyway, Mary, don't start. Now, just one last thing before I give you this next bit. I will put the link to the article, and it was written by a lady who writes for The Guardian, and she said had some awful misogynistic things happen to her, and she was alerting people to the fact that Trump is not the friendliest, kindest person. And if you remember back to the 2016 election where Donald Trump, inverted commas, won, he was what's the word, not fighting against, he was up against Hillary Clinton. Hillary spelt with a double L, by the way, if you're Googling. I kept Googling the wrong name. And he absolutely tore it to bits. He wasn't so much interested in what he could do for people. It was just like she was some awful woman from hell, and he was going to make sure that she suffered. And he'll do exactly the same thing this time. And we're only July at the moment, so he's got quite an amount of time to tear her to pieces because she's a woman. He probably wouldn't say half the things he says if she wasn't a woman, and you can guarantee he's going to do that this time. Now, I'm sort of wondering whether or not she's going to crumple because of that, and I doubt it, this is my reason for doubting, is that her moon is in Aries and her Mercury is in Scorpio, and I'm sure she's come across quite an amount of challenges in her life, and whether or not she's going to get flummoxed by that, I don't know. But Hillary Clinton is a Scorpio. I probably did her chart. Oh yes, I have got so I'll be talking about her chart in a minute. Anyway, so what I was looking at, I was looking at the dates for the US elections. You can't believe what astrologers get up to. I was so excited about the retrograde Venus and Mercury conjunction the other day, and I got almost equally as excited. So what I'm covering is the 2016, the 2020, and what's going to be coming up to the 2024 election. And I wanted to know why it was that Trump had won in 2016 and Hillary didn't, as far as his chart goes. Now remember, of course, that when somebody gets elected, it's not really totally through their own personality or their self or their planets or whatever. I thought, well, there must be something else that is part of the mix to it. So I thought, well, I'll just for a joke, not joke's wrong, but just for an investigation, I'll stick the part of fortune in, having done all these charts for all of these people for the last number of elections, and looking at Barack Obama, etc., who was elected twice, so elected and then re-elected. There must be something going on in their chart other than, I'm a wonderful person, therefore vote for me. So what I discovered was the reason, inverted commas, astrologically, that Trump was elected as opposed to Hillary Clinton in 2016 was the part of fortune. Okay, so we're just going to put Kamala to one side for a minute. So now I'm talking about recent US elections, because I wanted to think there must be something astrologically that would, inverted commas, explain why one person gets in and the other one doesn't. So I've done their charts. I've done Hillary and I've done Trump. So this is the transits for the 8th of November, because that's the date that the election finishes, basically, because there's a big build up to it and everybody's going to go to the voting booths and put their crosses. I don't know if you put a cross in the US or a tick or whatever. And in Trump's chart, he has his part of fortune 28 degrees Aquarius, and Hillary Clinton has her part of fortune 15 degrees Capricorn. And I will put these charts in the show notes, and I want you to look at them so that I'm not imagining what it is. I'm telling you, it's definitely there. Now, when you do a transit chart, I don't know what time of day it does the chart for. It just does, I don't know if it does it 12 o'clock for the day or 6 a.m. or whatever, but let's assume that it's the transits are set for halfway through the day. I don't know, somewhere it'll probably tell me, but I can't be asked to look it up at the moment. So on the day that Trump gets voted in, or he wins the election, the transiting moon is in Aquarius and he's got part of fortune in Aquarius. So even if it was like, so that's 12 o'clock later on in the day, then the moon would exactly conjunct to his part of fortune. Whilst Hillary Clinton, because she's got her part of fortune, Trump's got his in the 6th, by the way, her part of fortune falls in her 8th, and her part of fortune is 15 degrees, okay, natally, 15 degrees Capricorn, 16, and on that election, Pluto, transiting Pluto is now 15 degrees Capricorn, 22 minutes. So Pluto is exactly, should I say that again? Exactly conjunct to her natal part of fortune, which I wouldn't consider that to be particularly, inverted commas, lucky, because we're talking, the part of fortune is just where you get your most amount of well, obviously they call it Fortune. And if you want to know more about the part of Fortune, I have covered it a few times. So I've covered it in episode 57, episode 355, how does your partner affect your part of Fortune? And I did a webinar on it as well, which will be on my YouTube channel. So YouTube channel is just YouTube/ do the @ symbol, will probably get you there easier, which is Mary English. But there's I've done a what do you call it? Not a viewing list. I've done a playlist on webinars, and it'll be under there. So there's more about part of Fortune. Okay. So my question was, does the part of Fortune have anything to do with getting elected? Because it seems now that it very much is a luck thing, and the part of Fortune can represent that. I mean, there is probably another one that's called the part of luck, but anyway, part of Fortune. So my question, because I couldn't really see anything in Trump's chart that would go, oh, I mean, yes, he's having a Jupiter return. Natally, he's got Jupiter retrograde. And obviously, always in November, the sun is going to be into Scorpio. Never going to be able to change that. He's natally got moon in Saturn, and natally moon in Sagittarius, and Saturn and Venus are transiting, and Venus is near enough conjunct to his moon. He hasn't got planets in Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, or Aries, or Taurus even. So nothing's hitting there. And I was sort of wondering, because the only thing that's going to change every year is the outer planets, because the Sun and Mercury are near enough always going to be in Scorpio, and the Moon, because they keep changing the date, because it's a date. It's a day that they're choosing. It has to be a Tuesday, so that makes the date different. So it's my poor little brain there. So the transiting moon is near to his part of Fortune, which is a lot more friendly than having Pluto on your part of Fortune. Okay. Now I've got Biden's transits for the 3rd of November for the election that was in 2020. And he natally has his part of Fortune 6 degrees into Taurus in his 6th house, and Uranus is retrograding, and Uranus is exactly, so transiting Uranus is 8 degrees, and his part of Fortune is 6 degrees. So the lucky planet for him, in his case, was Uranus, or sudden happenings. Maybe he didn't think he'd manage it. I can't remember how he was doing in the polls or whatever. And then the moon was in Gemini on that particular date and is exactly conjunct to his Saturn. So my question is, how much do we need to take into account the part of Fortune when it comes to something like an election? Because it's not necessarily a rational thing that is happening, yeah. But I say the moon didn't do it for Biden. If we're talking about part of Fortune, it was Uranus that did it. Whilst in Hillary Clinton's, in the 2016 one, Pluto didn't help her. And anyway, she stood down, I think, for some reason or other. Did she stand down, or did she carry on? Can't remember what happened now. Oh no, I suppose she wouldn't have stood down until the votes came in. Is that right? Yeah. And I did look at Barack Obama for the 2 times, and there was nothing that was exactly conjunct to his part of Fortune, but there were things that were trining it and squaring it. I don't think there was anything in opposition, if I remember rightly. So I thought, well, let's have a look this year, Mary, and see if your theory is going to work at all. And I've got Kamala's chart with the election this year, the date, 2024, and I think I've done versus Trump. So here we go. And I think I put the part of Fortune in there. Let me double check that I'm sharing the right charts with you. Help. Now this year, on the 5th of November, which is when the election date is set for, and I don't know unless there's something catastrophic that stops it from happening, the Moon, Venus and Mercury this year are going to be in Sagi. It's just the way the planets go. Sometimes Mercury will be in the sun sign, sometimes it isn't. And Kamala has her part of fortune 24 degrees Sagi in her 7th house of close personal relationships. Trump has his part of fortune in Aquarius. So even though in his chart the moon will be returning, because he natally has moon in Sagi, and as I said, him, Kamala and Biden are all got sun and moon in opposition. The moon and Venus and Mercury are all going to be, so he'll probably think and he'll be happy on the day that he's managed to do it. But you know, I'm wondering here what's going to happen about the part of fortune, because there's nothing in the sign of Aquarius other than Pluto, which is what we got there. So Pluto's retrograded back into Capricorn at that moment in time. It's not even in Aquarius anymore, which I think it is today when I'm speaking to you. I'm sure it must be going retrograde at some point. It has been in Aquarius. Yeah, it's retrograding at the moment. It's only 0 degrees Aquarius, because it has been in Aquarius. I think it went as far as 1 degree or 1.5 degrees or something. So for the 2024 election this year, it seems like there's only going to be 2 candidates that are running. There'll be other little diddly people running, but how much noise they make is a different matter. As far as part of fortune goes, the moon and Venus and Mercury are in Sagi, and Kamala has her part of fortune in Sagi, and maybe she'll be lucky. Jupiter is retrograding. Natally, she's got it retrograde. Jupiter's retrograding over her ascendant. Uranus retrograding exactly conjunct to her natal retrograde Jupiter. Saturn transiting retrograde on her natal Chiron. Pluto in Capricorn, actually in her 8th house. Mars just into the sign of Leo, 0 degrees in Leo. She natally has Mars in Leo. And obviously the sun in Scorpio, and she's got Neptune and Mercury in Scorpio. So as far as Trump goes, Mars is, was 0 degrees. Yeah, 0 degrees Leo. He's got a Leo ascendant, but a very, very late degree. He's got Pluto and Mars in his 12th, and his ascendant's 29. Jupiter will be conjuncting his north node, retrograding. So, and Uranus is retrograding on his MC. Nothing else is conjuncting anything, because he's got the empty right hand side of his chart. Saturn's transiting his 7th. Neptune retrograde is transiting his 7th. Retrograding Chiron's in his 8th. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens this time round. Is it a luck thing? Is luck, inverted commas, what's necessary to win an election at the moment, like now? Obviously I haven't gone all the way back to the year dot to see what's happened with various other elections. I did look at Barack Obama. His natal part of fortune is in Aries, and for the election that was in 2008 that he won, there was nothing in Aries. Mercury was in opposition. And what was the other thing? Mercury's in opposition, and the moon and Jupiter was square. And then for 2012, because he won that one as well, Uranus was transiting through the sign of Aries, but it was nowhere near his part of fortune. The moon on that date was in Leo, and he is a Leo, so maybe that was helpful. Jupiter was retrograding in Gemini, and he's got moon in Gemini. And then if we're looking at anything that's making an aspect to his part of fortune, Venus is not exactly in opposition, but Venus is in Pluto's transiting, but it's nowhere near anywhere. There's 0 going on as part of fortune, so don't take this as gospel. I'm only saying this is the last few elections, and my question is, will the part of fortune have anything to do with the election that's coming up? Because it has had something to do with the 2016 election, the 2020 election. So for the last 2 elections, it's had something going on, and it's noticeable in not only Hillary Clinton's chart, but also Trump's chart. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm no good at predictions anyway, but I just like looking at patterns of things. So today we've been talking about Kamala Harris and her Gemini ascendant, Sun Libra, Moon Aries. And if you've got any questions on astrology and you'd like to ask me something, please do send me an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. You've only got a few more days before the offer that I have in my newsletter expires on the 31st of July. So if you want to subscribe, you will be, inverted commas, entitled to be able to have a 20% discount on astrology readings and a bit of hypnotherapy, and I think I've used a bit of homeopathy. Oh no, it's only follow-up, so I won't take on too many new clients. But yeah, if you want to have a 20% reduction on a reading, then please sign up for the newsletter. You can subscribe again straight away if you want to be able to benefit from the 20%. The offer expires on the 31st of July, but you can book as long as you book it before the 31st of July. Don't try booking it on the 31st of July. I had somebody do that because there's a time difference between the UK and the US. Okay, so please don't. So basically, book it by the 30th if you're in another country to the UK, because the time differences that can affect things. So you've got 2 more days. So I'm having Sunday today, so you've got till Tuesday to sign up to the newsletter, and I'll honour the 20% for you, and you can make a booking. So that's it. I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.